There's Craig.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi,
Good
Craig.
morning.
Happy Wednesday. All right, I'm excited about this one today. I don't know if you've ever seen Famous Dave speak, but I called him last night on the phone. We talked last night, and he's like so upbeat. Hey, Rock, and he just rattles off something for like 10 minutes. Like, hey, like his introduction of hello. Instead of saying hello, he rattled something off for like 10 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh, I miss you so much. But this man goes out for a lot of money at keynotes, and you'll be surprised at how many awards and things he's won, but I'll let him tell you all that stuff when he comes on, which should be any minute. So anyone have any questions before he comes on? And what are y'all doing? What are you doing? Just what the hell are you doing?
I am writing a letter to my aunt in Florida.
Very nice. Tell her I said hi.
Hello.
I spoke in a cemetery last night.
Wait, as a like a speaker
A paid speaker
in a cemetery.
in a cemetery.
Now that's good.
Wow.
That's cool, huh? It's
Yeah,
trivia
I
cool.
kind of that's special. I have not spoken in a cemetery yet. You have one on me.
It was cool.
Was it at night too?
Dusk into night, yeah.
Ooh,
and
that's-
they had, yeah, it's a historic cemetery, and there's some very old and cool looking headstones and tall, and they had them lit in an eerie fashion. It
Ooh.
was cool.
Yowza.
Yeah.
Yowza. All right, I think I see Mr. Famous Dave. Well, I see his name. Now maybe he's gonna put his video on, and then I can see his lovely face that I haven't seen in 40 years. Well, I'm exaggerating a little. You there, Dave? There he is. Oh my God, you've lost tons of weight.
Thank you.
No, you look great. You look so good. I haven't seen you in years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah. All right. So, all right, let's just get started right away. We have a bunch of people on and more coming because, you know, we get on at 11:01. That's what I do. I get on at 11 o'clock. All right. So I'm not going to introduce you, Dave, because I'd like to just talk about your background as basically you introduce yourself as because I would like to, you know, like one of your topics is your speaking topics, how I turned a backyard hobby into a $500 million company. So if you were to share like just how you started and who the heck you are, why don't you take over and tell us who you are?
Well, thank you, everyone. I'm really excited to be on Rock Your Life. I'm, as a matter of fact, when anybody ever asks me how I'm doing, I always tell them I'm rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
But so basically, my life is really one that it's hard to think that I would ever be where I'm at today. I grew up thinking I was the dumbest kid in life. I was in the bottom half of the class that made the top half possible. I had a 1.98 grade average in school. They kept trying to kick me out. And it wasn't until years later that I find out that I have severe ADHD. And so basically my story is my dad's a full-blood Choctaw Indian from Idabel, Oklahoma. My mom is from the Lakota Reservation. Both my parents were taken from their families at young ages and stuck in Indian boarding schools. The only good part about that is I guess they met at Haskell Institute for Indians. And so my dad went to the war in World War II, and after fighting in the Pacific Theater, came back and moved, married my mom in 1945. They moved to Chicago because that's where all the jobs were. And so a lot of people ask me today, well, Dave, how did you ever get into barbecue? And I can honestly say that I don't think I ever got into barbecue more than I was born into it, because I can remember eating rib tips on the south side of Chicago as early as 1959. And then my dad marrying my mom, who was from Hayward, Wisconsin, which is way up in the northwest corner of Wisconsin. My dad was all about his Southern home cooking, and my mom didn't know a thing about Southern home cooking. And so every other weekend, he used to haul her down south until she learned how to cook Southern. And so growing up, though, my mom, in order to raise extra money for us kids, would set up a Indian fry bread stand at American Indian powwows. And so I grew up helping my mom, and which was really nothing more than a tarp covered lean-to made out of wood saplings, where we would, my dad would roast some venison over an open fire. My mom would make Indian fry bread. We'd sell venison sandwiches and my mom's Indian wild rice soup at these Indian powwows. And then today, here I am, founder of Famous Dave's of America, America's best loved barbecue joint. So, and also creating over 20,000 new jobs. And just to give you an idea, I've been inducted into the National Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame, the Junior Achievement Hall of Fame, the Barbecue Hall of Fame, the National Barbecue Hall of Fame, the Minnesota Blues Hall of Fame. And Craig, I don't know if you know this, but I used to have one of the hottest barbecue and blues clubs in America. And we used to have like Johnny Winter, and we had some of the top blues, Little Ed and the Blues Imperials. You name it, we probably had it at our blues club.
Yeah, no, I did know that. I remember that. Yeah, I've never been there because I was never invited, but you know.
But I think my story is that it doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter what you've been through, is that in this amazing country, you can start off with nothing. And I literally should have been dead 4 times. I've been bankrupt 3 or 4 times, lost everything. I know what it means to have to dig through seat cushions to find change, but I never ever gave up. And I think, I always tell people, you can't stop a man who won't quit.
I like that. So when you started, so how did you actually get the money? How did you like start the first Famous Dave restaurant? Like what was the process? Because a lot of us are starting companies. So what was the process of how you actually got this whole thing started?
Well, I think Famous Dave's is really one story, and how I got started in my business career is another story. But let me just kind of maybe touch on the fact that people have always laughed at me. And even when I was building the first Famous Dave's in 1994, way up in the upper north woods of Hayward, Wisconsin. And folks, if you look at a map, you'll have to look way in the upper northwest corner of Wisconsin to see it. And when people would drive by and they would say, "Dave, what are you doing?" And I would tell them, I'm building the world's best rib joint. They would laugh and they would say, "Are you crazy? Hayward, Wisconsin? Why, there ain't nothing more than Swedes and Norwegians up here and Indians." And none of them have the first clue about barbecue. Why don't you go down to Kansas City or Memphis, someplace where people really understand barbecue? But I had a dream. And despite people laughing at me and telling me that I was crazy, especially folks, there's only 2,000 people in town. And I was building this barbecue joint 8 miles outside of town in the middle of nowhere. By the end of that summer, I was serving over 6,000 people a week, and wow. I never advertised. And there's a number of things I did to do that. I had a thing called customer touch points, which are moments of truth, which help build the emotional connection between the brand and the customer. But I think probably what folks probably want to hear is how I got started, because I never had a cent to begin with. Yeah. And I was kind of like the dumbest kid on the block. And I started my first business back in 1971 when I was only 19 years old, because I knew I wasn't going to get into any college. You can try that. I'm like the dumbest kid in class with a 1.98 grade average. But I figured this is that I could work faster. If I wasn't the smartest kid around, at least I was going to outwork everyone.
There you go.
And an amazing thing did happen though. I had a chance to take a sales course from somebody that we all know, Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
So I knew Zig going all the way back to 1971. I took a 5-day course, cost my dad a lot of money, but it changed my life. For the first time, this Indian kid, I always tell people there's a power in smiling, because I always used to think I was the ugliest kid in class, and there ain't nothing worse than being ugly, but also being broke and being dumb all at the same time. But I figured that learning how to smile was important. And folks, I was the shyest, most bashful kid in class. Never had a date in my entire high school career. Never wanted to raise my hand to answer a question seriously.
Yeah.
I was the most shyest, bashful kid in class. But I knew I had to change. And so after taking that course from Zig Ziglar, I started to talk out loud in front of a $5 mirror in my dad's basement. I'd smile at myself. I'd hold a candle out about a foot away from my mouth, and I would say the ABCs. I would read books out loud. And so I'm sharing this because people who know me today think I'm the most outgoing guy there is.
Yeah, you are.
I'm probably the most shyest, most bashful, nervous kid around. In fact, when I started my first business, I was Native American in the city of Chicago with a business. I was a kid. I would have different organizations want me to come speak. Because I was like a phenomena. Here you got a Native American kid who has a business. He's just a kid, and he's starting out with this business. And I can remember the first speech I ever gave in my life. It was to a group of minority entrepreneurs. It was at one of the universities in Chicago. I forget. It might be the University of Chicago or Illinois University, I forget. But back in 1972, they asked me to come talk, and I was, I would love to tell my story. And my first 45-minute speech lasted all of 5 minutes.
Yeah, baby.
I never once looked at the audience. I was sweating profusely. I was wringing wet in my armpits and my suit coat, and my knees were shaking. I know everybody was probably laughing at me. And back then we had cheap ballpoint pens. And so the notes that I was trying to read off of, the sweat was rolling off my forehead onto my notes. My notes were getting, the ink was getting all messed up. And finally I had enough of it. After about 5 minutes, I ran off the stage, and I swore for the rest of my life I would never speak to another group. And I avoided everybody that I knew that was at that for months.
Wow.
I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show, though, is that if you never, ever give up, amazing things happen. But let me share with you how I got started. I actually did not start in the food business. I started selling these little dish gardens to florists. And I had my little box of samples. I figured that no florist could ever work faster than me, because back then I had like a 29-inch waistline, because I was always running. I'd run in my dad's basement where I was building these things. I'd run to my van. I would run to the flower shop. But I can remember the first order I ever got. I had my little box of samples, and I was planting these little dish gardens, and I would polish every leaf. They would look really sharp, really beautiful. And I brought my little box of samples into the first florist on Addison, Pulaski. It was Ashner, Richard Lang Florist, and the owner was Jim Ashner. And so I went in with my little box of samples. I'm 19 years old, don't have a clue about sales or anything, but I was determined. And the lady at the counter, she said, you know, the florist, he's really busy right now. He's working on a funeral arrangement. And if you could come back, you know, I'm sure he'd see you. And so I went out to the bus stop and I sat there for hours. And then later on, the florist came running out. He said, kid, what are you doing here? My gal told me that you were sitting out here and you had something I needed to see. And I said, well, I really do. I would like for you to take a look at my samples. He said, so come on in, kid. Let me see what you got. And so I went in, I put my samples on the counter, and he started looking at them. And he said, these are really nice, kid. He said, get out your pad. And so I got out my pad, and he said, give me 3 dozen of these, give me a dozen of those, 2 dozen of these, 3 dozen of these. And I'm writing as fast as I could. And finally I stopped and I said, Mr. Ashner, do you think you would be okay if I just brought you 2 of each? And he said, 2 of each? He said, my God, kid, I thought you came here for some business. I thought you wanted an order. What's with this 2 of each? That's like a sample. I said, well, I'm just getting started, and your order, I don't have enough money to do that.
Oh.
He looks at me, he looks at the sample, looks back at me, and he said, Andy, he called me Andy, my name's Dave. I remember this. He said, Andy, he said, you look like an honest young man. And I can remember when I started out, he said, if you were to deliver me everything that I'm looking at, I would pay you in advance. Would you promise me that what I'm looking at, that you would deliver? I said, yes, sir. It'll be the best you've ever seen. And absolutely. And so I'll never forget this. He turns around, yells back to the office. He says, Anna Marie, write this young man, Mr. David Anderson, a check for $736.35. I walked out of that florist that day with a check of $736.35. That was more money than my dad made working construction back in 1971.
Wow.
And so there's some lessons to be learned here, because that next weekend was Mother's Day, and that's why he wanted such a big order. I went in and I busted down boxes. I swept his floor. I cleaned his bathrooms. I took deliveries. And he was a good florist. He sold out of everything. You know, what's amazing is everybody forgets they have a mother until Mother's Day. And then they say, oh, I gotta go get some flowers. Nobody orders in advance. And it's not like toys where you can stock the shelves with toys months in advance, but flowers they have to make the day before. And so these florists, they work around the clock, and I worked alongside of them. I helped them whatever they needed. And on Sunday, everybody's exhausted, everybody's tired, and I'm sweeping up and I'm about ready to leave. And he said, come here, Andy. He said, and I could see he had a wad of cash in his hands. And he said, here, take this. He said, you were an amazing kid. I really appreciated your help more than I could ever tell you. I'm really grateful for your help. And I said, no. I said, I came here because I'm grateful. I'm very thankful that you gave me my first order and you got me going. He said, no, kid. He said, you got to take this money. You really worked your butt off and you got to take this money. And I said, no, I can't. I said, I'm not going to take it. I came here because I'm grateful and I wanted to help you. And he kept trying to put the money, and I could see there was a $100 bill. Back in 1971, that was like $1,000. $100 bill was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he kept trying to put it, he tried to put it in my pocket, and finally I just ran out. And I learned something from that though, is because by the end of that summer, he had told every florist in the city of Chicago. By the time I was 21, I had every major retail florist account in the city of Chicago. But one of the things I learned is that never work for today's paycheck, always work for tomorrow's opportunity.
Wow.
Because tomorrow's opportunity is greater than anything you get paid today. But here's the other thing. We got to be great friends, and I always went in there, and I still helped him as long as I knew him. And one day he came and put his arm around me. He says, you know, Andy, he said, you're a young kid, you're hardworking. I really come to like you. He said, but if you're going to get ahead in life, he said, you got to know people who are the movers and shakers in town. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm a Native American kid. I'm an American kid growing up on West Side of Chicago. You know, why would anybody get to want to know me? And he said, Dave, let me take you to the Chamber of Commerce meeting next week. So I came, and he always had a brand new Cadillac, this florist. So we got in his Cadillac. We went to, I think it was the Red Robin. It was like a supper club, and that's where the Chamber of Commerce meeting was. And he said, Dave, he said, at the Chamber of Commerce meetings, you're going to meet the movers and shakers in the community, because all the deadbeats, they don't attend these meetings. He said, but this is where I get a lot of my business, and I get to meet all the owners. And that's one of the things about Chamber of Commerce meetings, is usually the presidents of companies and the owners of companies are the ones who attend these. And so I actually use this when I go and share my story to community groups and to colleges. I always tell the college kids, I said, how many of you would like to meet all the people who are the movers and shakers in your community and the ones who are doing the hiring? And of course, everybody, you know, they want to know this. And I'll share this with you in a second. But, you know, my business was growing, and I needed money to grow my business. And before this, I was going to bank after bank after bank. And the presidents of banks would always say, Anderson, what kind of assets do you have? And I would go, assets. And they would say, yeah, collateral. And, you know, I was just starting out in life. And I can remember saying, well, I really don't have much. And they would say, well, but I have orders. I have all these orders. And they said, yeah, but you need collateral. Could your parents sign for you? No. But anyway, so he said, Dave, he said, you want to go, or you want to start attending these Chamber of Commerce meetings. So I would go and I would help out and set the place up. And after one chamber meeting, the president of the local bank came up to me and he said, Dave Anderson, he said, I understand that you have a wholesale florist business and you sell stuff to florists. He said, how would you like to sell to the public? Because at my bank this next Saturday, we're going to do a promotion, and you could set up in one corner of the foyer here and sell your little dish gardens. And on the other side, we're going to pass out hot dogs and popcorn. And I said, that would be great. And so that Friday night, I must have polished every single leaf on every one of those dish gardens. And I got there nice and early on a Saturday morning, and it seemed like that morning went by fast because I was selling, and I sold everything out. And I was at banks close at noon on Saturdays. I was packing up my boxes. The president of the bank, he comes around the corner. He looks at me. He said, young man, I want to see you in my office. I said, oh man, my heart sunk. And I thought maybe I pissed off one of his clients, his customers. And so I go back to his office, and you got to remember, I'm just a native kid that grew up on the West Side of Chicago. I'm walking on a rug that was so thick. I've never seen a rug that thick, because all the rugs in our home, you could see through. I'm walking on this rug, and then I go in his office, and I see this desk that was so huge, and president of the bank, he's looking over the desk at me, and he said, that was pretty good, young man. You did really good with my clients today. And I noticed you really sold out. You sold out of everything. He said, I've never seen anything like that. And then he said, I understand you're looking for a loan. I said, yes, sir. He said, well, how much do you need? I said, $10,000. He said, $10,000, that's a lot of money. And folks, back in 1971, that was, well, let me see, 1973, it's now 1973.
Right.
That was a lot of money. $10,000, it's probably like $100,000 today.
Right.
But back then, that was a lot of money, because I can remember you could buy for $13,000 one of the biggest, fanciest Eldorados or Lincoln Mark IVs. I mean, those were the cars. And I miss those days. I'm kind of getting off track here, but when a Lincoln Mark or a Cadillac Eldorado went down the street, the whole block knew about it.
Yeah.
And today, luxury cars look like every other car. But anyway, $10,000 was a lot of money, and the banker says, young man, what kind of collateral do you have? And my heart sunk. And he said, you got to have something of value. And I said, well, I got some brand new jeans. I got a record player. I got some albums. And I had this all figured out. It was about $400 of stuff I figured were things of value. That's what I had, about $400 in my record player. And Craig, you would probably appreciate it, because some of those Rolling Stone albums probably would be worth a fortune today.
Yeah, probably.
I still had them.
Yeah.
But anyway, he looked at me and he said, you really need something of value. And then he asked me again, he said, would your parents co-sign for you? I got Native American parents, we didn't have much. And then he said, I've seen you show up at all the Chamber of Commerce meetings for the last several years. You're always helpful. You help set up, and you're always pleasant to everybody. And I just watched you sell out this morning. He said, we need young people like you in our community, young business owners, young people that have dreams and make things happen. And he said, we don't hardly ever do this. He said, I'm going to give you your money. And with that, he reached down into his bank drawer. He pulled out this checkbook. I never seen a checkbook that big in my life. That was all the checkbooks I had were about this big, and this checkbook was huge. And he writes out a check for $10,000. I had to sign some papers, but that Saturday I left out of that bank, 1973, with a check for $10,000 on my signature alone.
Wow.
Just because I attended all the Chamber of Commerce meetings. And that's what I tell college students today. I said, if you want to meet the movers and shakers, start going to your local Chamber of Commerce meeting and offer to help. And at some point offer to pass out the name tags, because when you pass out the name tags at the local Chamber of Commerce meeting, you are going to meet all the movers and shakers. And if you're dressed nice and you smile, you're going to shake hands with those people, and they're going to remember you.
Dave, that's how I started. That's what I did in Santa Clarita, California. I talk about this all the time. I volunteered at all these nonprofit events, and I would sit there and at the registration table, because I got to shake their hands. I got to give them a name tag. I knew their name, and they're like, who are you? And I say, Craig Duswalt with Green Room Design and Advertising. I'm new in town. And that's exactly what I did. That's how I met all those people, because you're meeting at a place where everyone's in a good mood. It's a nonprofit. It's raising money for a good cause, just like the chamber thing. So that's I'm like, that's what I did. It's really good. I love everyone is chatting about this. Never work for today's paycheck, work for tomorrow's opportunity. I love that. I just dropped my pen. All right, so that's how so what did you do with the $10,000? Did you buy an Eldorado? Did you buy a Cadillac?
No, actually grew the company, but you know what? I think part of my story is that you can never give up. You never know when things are going to work out for you, but you can never give up. And I see that happen so many times. People start out and I always, whenever I always talk about three things. I talk about life is about change. I talk about lifelong learning. And the third thing I talk about, and I always ask people, I say, how many of you would like to learn the secret to all success in life? And of course, everybody raises their hands, but the first thing I talk about is change, because everything that we do is about change. And especially today, we are seeing change accelerate in how it's changing globally. And I know there's a lot of people out there that have kids, more changes happening in one day of those kids' life than in 10 years of us old fogies. But change is happening so fast. But here's the thing about change. Everybody thinks that we need either a better president, we need a better economy. If I had a better situation, if I had a different spouse, you know, and really change doesn't happen out there. Change happens here.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest lesson about that is that, you know, I think we've all heard that quote from Mahatma Gandhi, you know, become the change that you want to see in the world. So we have to be about change, and not just little things, but dramatic change. And for me, it had to be transformational change. So I went from being the dumbest kid in class. And by the way, I think one of the things that really made a difference in my life, because actually today, even though I had 1.98 grade average in high school, I actually have a master's degree from Harvard University on a full ride. 1986, I'm 32 years old. I got, and try that, folks. Hey, Harvard University, I got a 1.98 grade average in high school. I do not have an undergraduate degree, but I want in your master's program.
Yeah, how did you pull that one off?
Well, I actually got, because of my, I always give back. You know, I've always said that it's never about me. And here's an interesting thing. I've been inducted into the Junior Achievement, the Junior Achievement Hall of Fame. I've been inducted into the National Entrepreneurs Hall of Fame. And I got inducted with, that night, I got inducted with Fred DeLuca, the founder of Subway. I got inducted with Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A.
Wow.
And you gals, all you guys probably won't get this one. Maybe Craig does because he's a rock band guy. I got inducted with the founder of Spanx.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, rock stars wear Spanx.
Yeah.
Right,
Hell yeah.
a lot of people didn't know Sarah Blakely, but here I am. I'm sitting at a table with Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx, Truett Cathy, founder of Chick-fil-A, and Fred DeLuca, founder of Subway.
Wow.
Just those three people alone, we figured it up, we're worth $13 billion.
Wow.
Now, I've not quite that much, although I can say that I have lost as much as $50 million in a day when the stock market crashed and people say, you lost $50 million in one day. I said, yeah. And I said, I slept like a baby that night. I said, you lost $50 million in a day and you slept like a baby? I said, yeah, slept for 2 hours, got up and cried. Slept for 2 hours, got up and
I like that.
And by the way, I do have ADHD, so I forgot what I was talking about.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I do that all the time. You were doing the change. So the change happens in here. You were doing the three things.
Yeah. So where I was going with this is that one of the things that back in 1971, when I took this course with Zig Ziglar, is that I got a set of cassette tapes. And in there were cassettes by Cavett Robert, Zig Ziglar, Tom Hopkins, a lot of the great speakers back in the day, Earl Nightingale. And so I'm 19 years old. And even though I was the dumbest kid in class, I started listening to those tapes. The other thing that Zig said is that you have to read every day. You got to put the pure, the clean, the powerful, and the positive into your mind. And so I started reading Think and Grow Rich, See You at the Top, and Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Wow.
I mean, I kept those three books by my side.
What was the second one, Dave? What was the second book? See You at the Top?
See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. And there's a fourth one, The World's Greatest Salesman by Og Mandino.
Oh my gosh, that's my favorite book.
By the way,
dude, I'm reading that again right now. I read it once a year, that book.
well, I actually have a picture of myself with W. Clement Stone, Og Mandino, and Zig Ziglar.
Wow.
That is a picture I'll never.
Yeah.
One of my most favorite pictures. But anyway, so the other thing was I always listened to something edifying in my car every day. I always listened to books on, back then it was cassette tapes, and then went to CDs and today iPods. So, and I always tell people, you always want to look at your car, not as transportation, but your university on wheels. And then today, of course, we have iPods and now cell phones. I always download audiobooks to my iPod and I would listen to that whether I'm on a plane, but I'm always putting the pure, the clean, the powerful, something that's inspiring, something that's edifying in my mind. Because when you're out there competing, not everything goes our way. And that leads me to what the secret to all success is. Because when you're going up that ladder of success in life, everybody says, well, you got to work smarter and you got to work harder. Well, folks, if you're already working 80 hours a week, you really can't work 160 hours a week. It's just not possible. And then in my case, working smarter just wasn't in the cards. And so folks will say, well, what is the secret to success in life? And I always say, when you're going up that ladder of success in life, it's not because you're smarter or working harder. It's because you have stepped up and accepted more than your share of the problems. And I think one of the things, the fallacies is you'll hear people say, well, you got to put that monkey on somebody else's back. No, it don't work that way. All opportunity comes from problems. And when you're going up that ladder of success, what you're doing is you're stepping up and accepting more problems. And I always share this with our team at Famous Dave's or any of the businesses that I've started. I always say, I'm always going to be here for you. If you got a problem, I want you to come to me. And folks, I'm a believer today is that, I'm nothing more than a sinner saved by grace. I'm very open about that. God has made a difference in my life, but I'm not an angel either. And there's the good and the bad, and things don't go right, and it's okay. And I even tell parents today, I think sometimes we try to make our kids saints when everybody has this mischievousness in them, which is actually pushing the envelope. And if you weren't pushing the envelope, you wouldn't be out there on the edge. You couldn't see how far you were going. And I think sometimes we try to corral our kids when all they're doing is they're in the process of discovery. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but failure and mistakes are all part of life. And people will make bad mistakes, but they're not bad people.
Right.
Unless, some things are bad and you need to address that and take care of that right away. But mistakes and failure, I don't think we fail enough. And when you're making mistakes, you're going to have problems. And the other thing is that the people that come into our business, everything about it is about problems. If you're hungry and they want, I'm going to give them the best ribs that I have, but it's always about the other people. And that's the other lesson in life. So many people, wonder, well, how did you get to where you are? And I was telling them, you know what? I discovered way back when I helped that first florist that it's not about me. It's always about other people. And even Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough other people first, you can get anything you ever want out of life, if only you help enough other people first. And so I always say that I am obsessively devoted to being a positive difference in the lives of other people. I want to be a blessing into the life of other people. And in fact, so when you're going up that ladder of success, it's because you're not working harder. It's not because you're working smarter, but you're taking on problems. And so when I talk to my employees, my team members, I always tell them there are going to be times when you're having problems and I want to come alongside you and help you. At the same time, there's going to be times in our company when things, the wheels are falling off the cart. And the last thing we need is for you to say, oh, my company's all effed up and my company can't do things right. And really what we want to hear is we want you to say, hey, I know that my company is having a tough time. I'm not going to gossip about my company. I want you to know that I'm here for you. We're going to get through this. And so problems are really important in life. We need to be supportive of other people. And that's my other concept I always talk about is you incorporated. You know, when you, no matter who pays you, if you always believe that you're the owner, now you may be working for one company, but that one company is the company that gives you your check. And if you think about it, that this is my company, you will never gossip about your employees. I never gossip about my employees. In fact, if somebody's having a tough time, you want to go over, put your arm around them and say, hey, I know you're having a tough time. How can I help you? When you look at your business as your business, you're going to respect the things that are in that company. And so I think that's an important philosophy. Is
I love you incorporated. That's so good.
Yeah, you're always working for somebody else, but it's your company. And so you're there to be a problem solver. You're there to be a blessing, make a positive difference in the lives of others. And if you get yourself out of the way, amazing things have happened to me, not because I wanted to be center stage, not because I wanted to have the accolades or the credit, but because I've always been there for other people.
Wow. When you did your ADHD thing earlier, actually what you were talking about was someone said, because we didn't get the answers. So actually, how did you get into the Harvard Master Program?
Well, when you're in your community, you always want to give back however you can. So I've always been active and supportive of community groups. We support a lot of young people. We actually have a program called Leadership from the Heart.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too. Yeah.
Where we work with at-risk kids. So I'm always out in volunteering in the community, or I go and speak to community groups. And so one of the things that I've done is get involved in local community groups. And I've served on the Wisconsin Council of Tourism. I've served on the Wisconsin Council for Minority Business Development. And then really took on some tough issues in helping to bridge the gap. And one of the things I did with my mom's tribe, the Lakota was the Lakota Lake Superior Band of Ojibwe, is I got them to join the local Chamber of Commerce. I got the tribe to join the tourism group, and we really bridged the gap between the non-Indian local town and the tribe. And so because of that, I got recognized by Governor Earl in the state of Wisconsin, got put on his Council of Tourism. And that led to my being recognized by the Bush Leadership Foundation, not President Bush, but Alfred G. Bush. It's a foundation in the Twin Cities. So I get recognized as a Bush Leadership Fellow, and that sort of opened the door. Now I still had to pass the test, and it seems like all of the years that I've been reading and listening to books on tape, I was actually able to pass the test to get into Harvard University. Wow. And here's another interesting thing. Turns out I'm actually smart, and I did my master's degree in 9 months. And then a couple years after, another school actually gave me a doctorate and said, "We think you deserve this. Here you go."
So do I have to call you Dr. Dave now?
You could, but it's, again, it's not about me.
Right.
And I live my life in gratefulness. I live my life in sobriety. I'm obsessively devoted to the happiness of other people. In fact, when I go to schools, I always tell the teachers several things. I said, first of all, you always want to be nice to your A students because they may come back and teach for you, but you always want to be nice to your D students because they may come back and build you a school.
Right, exactly.
But here's the thing. I believe that our entire education system would be changed if we understood why we go to school. Because, when you're in high school, your parents will shake their fists at you and they'll say, "You better study hard." And the reason why you have to study hard is so you can get good grades, right?
Yep.
Everyone play along with me now. When you're in high school, you got to study hard so you can get good grades. And the reason why you need to get good grades in high school is so you can get into college, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're in college, you have to study really hard when you're in college. Why? So you can get good grades. And so you're in high school, you have to study hard so you can get good grades, so you can get into college. When you're in college, you have to study really hard so you can get good grades. And the reason why you need good grades in college is so you can get a good job. And the reason why you need to get a good job is so you get cars, get houses. If you were to ask anybody in high school why they have to study really hard to get good grades, they will all tell you so they can get a good job. Here's an interesting thing. If you were to walk down any street and you ask 100 people, why do you have to work? What do you think their number one answer is going to be?
To make money to pay your bills.
Exactly, to pay your bills. And that's not why we work. The same thing. It goes back to why we're in school. We don't study to get good grades, to get a good job so we can pay our bills. The reason why we're successful in life is because we are obsessively devoted to being a positive difference in the life of another person.
Yes.
We live to make other people happy. So I really believe that our entire education system would change if from the day we started learning in high school, that we understood this one thing, that what we are learning, if we could understand what we were learning was to be used to better the life of another person.
Wow.
And not to get a good grade, not so I can get a good job, so I can get a house of cars. But what I am learning is to be used to better the life of another person. I really believe that our entire education system would be changed.
Boy, I wish you can make that happen. I'm just writing this down. Better the life of another person. Before we get to some questions, because I want to, there's so many things going on in the chat. Andy, get it? Andy, did you see that? What was the third book that you always read? Think and Grow Rich. See you at the top.
It was Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
See You at the Top. How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Thank you.
The World's Greatest Salesman.
Win friends and influence. Okay, everyone was asking. All right. You also won some. I saw on your wiki page some Oprah award. So an Oprah Winfrey Angel Award. What was that?
I got a call from Oprah's team like on a Tuesday, and they said, Dave, is this Dave Anderson, the Rip King, famous Dave Anderson? I said, yes. And they said, we understand that you do some work with at-risk kids and you have this leadership program. Oprah's team is going to be in the Twin Cities this Thursday. We know it's short notice, but do you think that they could come and do a video or get some B-roll, film what you do with kids? And by the way, this program that we have actually started out as our training program for famous Daves. One of the things that I realized early on is that most corporate training programs are not enough. You know, they talk about the company's history, they talk about the founders possibly, they talk about the core values of the company, they talk about the company products, then they talk about their goals. And then they slap you on the butt and they tell you, go get them, Tiger. But really what's missing is the building of the person. And early on, having gone through Zig Ziglar's program, I realized is that we don't do enough to build the person. And you can never have a successful business unless you build successful thinking people first. The people in your business have to believe that they themselves can be successful in life, not just your business, but how they operate their own personal affairs, their own families, how they're successful they are in life. And so when I started Famous Daves, I spent $2 million. I hired a behavioral scientist. I really put together this leadership from the heart program. And by the way, it's not happy camp, because in grade school, high school, college, we have a lot of leadership retreats where young people will go off, they'll sit around a campfire, sing Kumbaya, and then everybody goes home happy, happy, happy. That's not leadership. And so we put together this amazing program. It's 2 days. It's the most challenging thing you will ever do. In fact, it's deep transformative change.
Oh, I love that.
You either go through it and you get through it, but you are going to break. You're going to break down. It's that tough. It's that challenging. And if you don't break, you haven't put it all out there. So we've been doing this work with at-risk. So we started, again, my ADHD, I'm all over the board. So we started this at Famous Dave's, and at one time we had the highest or the lowest turnover of our employees that any company in America. And even to this day, we have employees and leaders that have been with our company 25 years, 28 years, really a long time. And I really believe it's the training, this program that we have that makes all the difference. So anyway, Oprah said that we'd like to see what you are doing with these kids. And oh, there goes my ADHD again. So we realized, well, if this could be so effective with the young people coming into our work environment, this would be good for young people. So we created this Life Skills Center for Leadership to work with at-risk inner city youth and youth on Indian reservations. And so Oprah said, we heard you have this program working with at-risk youth. Do you think we could film some of it? And I'm thinking, oh my God, because usually we go to these rural areas. So, but we didn't want to pass up this opportunity with Oprah. And so we said, sure. Well, between that Tuesday and Thursday, we had to go to all these northern reservations in northern Minnesota. We had to get parents' permission. We had to get the school permission, teachers' permission, and we had to get these youth down to the Twin Cities. And we had to figure out how to get them rides. But we got them down to the Twin Cities on a Thursday. Oprah's crew, they did a filming, lasted like most of the morning on the work that we do with these kids. And it's really inspiring. If you would see what we do, you would almost cry. Wow. to see the inspiration and see how these young people, what's inside of them just gets unleashed. And so after that, they said, we also understand that you have this barbecue and blues club and you have the world's best ribs and barbecue. Do you think we could go over there, get some B-roll and show pictures of you doing some barbecue? I said, sure, that'd be a great idea. Meanwhile, I'm sweating my boots. And so I call over there, guys, you got to clean the place up. Oprah's crew is going to come over there and get the ribs out. And so we went over there and my team was all spiffy. They just kind of freshened up the place and I'm flipping ribs and they're flaming up and Oprah's crew is doing some filming. So then that weekend, I get a call at my home and they said, this is Harpo Studios, we're Oprah's advanced team. Oprah really loved seeing the B-roll, the videos that they did on the work that you're doing with these kids. And then she really loved your barbecue. This was the Barbecue and Blues Club. She loved seeing you doing the ribs and looks like people are having a fun time. She said, and then they said, here's something out of the blue. We're hoping that you can find time for. Oprah would really love to have you down in Chicago this coming Tuesday. She's going to have a panel of minority business people, and she would love to have your input as an American Indian entrepreneur. Do you think you could be down here this Tuesday? I'm thinking, well, I'm going to have to cancel some things. I said, but yes, I would love to do that. So I start calling my office. We got to cancel everything on Monday and Tuesday. I'm going to go down to Chicago, Harpo Studios. I'm going to be on Oprah's panel for minority business. And then I call my PR gal. Her name was Jean Golden. I said, Jean, you gotta call down to Harpo Studios, find out who these other minority entrepreneurs are, find out what the subject is, find out what the topic is, so I can start preparing. And so the weekend starts to go by, and I keep calling. Did you find out anything? She said, well, it's the weekend. I'm having a hard time getting hold of Harpo Studios. And so Monday, I said, Jean, I've got to leave for Chicago pretty soon. What did you find out? Who's the other minority entrepreneurs? What did you find out anything? She said, they said they would get back to me, but they haven't. And my heart is, I'm all nervous. I'm going to be on national TV, Oprah Winfrey. I'm going to be on this panel. I'm not going to know what to say. So anyway, we go down to Chicago. We stay at this hotel that we're assigned to, and then the next morning, Tuesday, we get there bright and early, and we're really early because I'm still, and I'm really getting on my PR gal, and my family's with me, and I said, what'd you find out? She said, they haven't, they're busy, they're in the production of this show, and she said, Dave, you'll do all right. I said, no, but I need to know what I'm going to talk about. And so we're in this green room, and none of the TVs are working. I said, Jean, I'm in Harpo. By the way, Harpo Studios is like 3 city blocks. It's huge. Wow. And I said, Jean, there's got to be other green rooms. Maybe we can go out in the lobby, and maybe they got the show on there so I could see what is going on. And she went out, she came back, she said, no, you really have to stay here in this room, and they're going to see if they can get a technician to see why the TVs ain't working. I can't believe I'm in Harpo Studios, Oprah Winfrey, and the TVs don't work in my green room. Finally, the door, all of a sudden this door opens, and it's Oprah. She grabs me by the hand and she said, come with me, Dave. We start going down this hallway right into, and before you know it, I'm in the audience, or I'm on stage, and all these people are in this audience. And she said, Dave, do you know what's going on here? And I'm looking around. Well, I think I'm going to be on this minority business panel. And she said, Dave, we have a short video on you, and it's like my life story. They have got this video of the famous Daves. They got this video on the work that we do with these at-risk kids. And then she says, Dave, we have this young lady, her name's Misty Babineau. And with that, out of the hallway comes Misty. She comes walking out. She was in this video that Oprah had, saying how our life skills program changed her life. She had seen her mom commit suicide in front of her grandma. It was just the most heartbreaking story. But she said that our leadership from the Heart program saved her life. She's now going on to school. It was the most touching program. Meanwhile, my mind is still thinking. I'm looking around. I'm trying to find these other minority business people, and I'm thinking I'm going to be on this panel. And then Oprah says that she's giving me her Angel Network Award, along with $25,000 to help us with the work that we do with at-risk kids. And then I get led back to the green room. I'm still thinking I got a minority business panel. And it wasn't until the program's over that I realized I got duped. And it turns out my family, my wife, my son, everybody, my mom and dad that were in the audience at the time, my PR gal, they were all in on it. And here's an interesting thing. Misty, the gal in the movie, was from the White Earth Reservation way up in the North Woods. She was 16 at the time. She had gotten down to the Twin Cities airport. She's a native gal, right? Off the reservation. She didn't have any ID. They wouldn't let her on the plane. Oprah's show was about ready to fall apart because this Indian gal was part of my program. Oprah sends her private jet up to pick up Misty, picks up Misty in her private jet, comes down. This gal, Indian gal, has her own limousine, and I guess they were kept all in another hotel, but
Wow. That
it's
is
quite the story.
I'm crying. That is the most incredible. I did not know that whole story. I'm so glad I asked the question. I'm so glad. That is amazing. That well, I mean, Dave, I could talk to you for 8 hours. It looks like, but we're near the hour, and I want to respect your time. Can we just? Well, I just want to ask this, and then we can open up for just a couple of questions. Where did the word "famous" come from? Your ego?
No, it was a mistake. When I first opened up the first Famous Dave's, I actually was going to call it Diamond Dave's, and then I got sued by this company that had a Diamond Dave's taco stand in Iowa.
Oh,
So I went down to Iowa with the thought that I was going to buy them out because I really liked the name. And I tasted the guy's food. I said, no, I'm going to let him keep his food, keep his name. So then I came back, and on the road to my barbecue joint, there's Dave's Antiques, Dave's Boats, Dave's Guns. So I was going to be Dave's Famous Barbecue Shack. And so we're getting ready to open my first rib joint, and we get our business cards. And I look at the business cards, and I said, Kathy, my wife, I said, Kathy, look what they got it wrong. It says Famous Dave's Barbecue. And I was really hot.
Wow.
And she said, why don't you just keep it? I like how it sounds. And I said, yeah, but there's like Famous Amos cookies of fame. I don't know if they would allow me to do it. She said, we're up here in the Northwoods. Nobody will ever know about Famous Dave's Barbecue. and so we kept it. Interestingly, I got to meet Famous Amos, and he's got quite the story.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But
That's
anyway, you know, I live a life of gratefulness. Any other questions?
Yeah, that Dave, you're amazing. Any other questions? I'm afraid to open this up because there might be 4,000, but we'll take 2 or 3 questions. Does anyone have a question? Just like unmute yourself and talk. All right, good. No questions.
Hey, Dave.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, Dave, thank you so much for sharing all about your life and your successes and blessing us. I just have one. It might sound like a crazy question, but I live in Temecula, California, which is the southern wine country. Many of you there know where Temecula is. It's the southernmost city before you hit San Diego County. And we have a Famous Dave's, or I should say we had a Famous Dave's for several years here in town, and all of a sudden it was gone. The building is still there, but it's gone. And now in that same little plaza area, there's another barbecue restaurant called Phil's Barbecue. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Phil's Barbecue out of San Diego. And my question is, Phil's didn't open up until well after Famous Dave's was closed. But my question is, how are they owned? Are they owned and operated independently?
Well, Famous Dave's has corporate restaurants, and they have franchise restaurants.
Okay.
You know, and sometimes, you know, like I shared earlier, not everything in life goes right. And sometimes you got to regroup. Sometimes you got to close things down. That particular restaurant was paying too much in rent. As a lot of people know, restaurants work on really slim margins. You really have to know what you're doing. And by the way, I'm very familiar with Phil's BBQ. I actually love Phil's BBQ. They started out in San Diego and are probably one of the highest grossing barbecue restaurants in the country.
Wow.
So I never will talk down about anybody else's restaurant, because anybody who's an entrepreneur puts in a lot of time, and I support anybody. I help a lot of my colleagues who have barbecue restaurants, because when I started out, I would not be around if other barbecuers had not helped me out.
Yeah.
So I'm all about helping and supporting other people. And it's amazing when you put others first, what comes around goes around.
Yeah. Thank you.
David,
There's another question in the chat.
I have a question. Well, it's not a question, but I have a thank you, because I just moved from California to Gunner, Texas, which has a population now of 1,500 people. and there's a Sonic on the main street. And we just heard that Famous Dave's is coming, and I could not be happier. So I don't know if you're familiar, if it's a franchise or whatever, or if somebody was lying to me, but I am so looking forward to it because love your barbecue.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that's 20 minutes from me. So I'll be going to Famous Dave's again because we don't have one near us. Another question in the chat. What did your parents think about your success, Dave?
Well, I think they've always have been in awe, been supportive, but they also remember the tough times. I should have, like I said, I should have been dead. There's a large part of my life when I was sort of living on the edge. But I think my life story really is that it doesn't matter what you've been through, the things you've done. What really matters is where you're going.
Yeah.
And you can never look back. I use all of my failures, my mistakes. And by the way, I never hide anything. I'm very open that I've had tough times. I'm very open that I've made some really bad decisions in my life. But I also use that to give hope to other people who've, we've all done things we regret.
Yeah,
we regret, but that should never keep you from always moving forward.
Yeah. A lot of people live in the past like, oh, I don't deserve to be successful because I did this and I've been that. And I think that's a lot of hooey. I think, you move forward, you learn from the mistake, right? You learn from whatever you did. And then you're a stronger person. And then you can help the people that are going through what you went through because you went through it and look what you turned out to be. Yeah. So I think that's great. Tim Blatt is in our group. He's a Zig Ziglar guy as well, but he's created his own ribs and barbecue sauce recipes. And I've actually eaten his ribs. And I got to tell you, Dave, he's pretty darn good. He's pretty darn good. Little Timmy. Any other questions?
Yes. I just wanted to say, Dave, thank you so much for sharing your inspirational story. I mean, I've just been blown away. I'm a huge Zig Ziglar fan as well. He's really shaped my life, and it was just wonderful to hear how he shaped yours as well. I'm curious if there are any books or anything that you fuel your mind with today, that positivity that you share, and also if you ever plan on writing any of your own books.
I actually have, if you go on Amazon, I have written a book called Life Skills for Success. I have another little book called Recipes for Success. And I think there's still some out there. I know we've sold out several times. I think today, right now, I'm reading this book called Purple Cow. It's about how to really be unforgettable, how to be over the top.
Oh, I like that.
I am writing a book about customer touch points. How because a lot of people open up businesses and they don't understand the customer touch points that are really moments of truth that build the emotional connection to the brand and the business. And these customer touch points are so important that every one of them should almost have their own mission statement. So there's a lot of things that I learned. For example, when I started the first Famous Dave's, I had the most talked about ladies' bathroom in probably 6 states. My ladies' bathroom, and I actually coined the word bathroom marketing because my ladies' bathroom had hand-painted rose basins imported from Italy in the most beautiful marble top, 24 karat gold plated waterfall faucets, a mirror that had wrought iron decor around it. I had crown molding in the ceiling of this bathroom. The artwork on the walls were museum quality artwork. I had 24 karat gold wall tiles, fresh flowers. The ladies would walk in the bathroom, their jaw would drop. In fact, when I first opened, a lady called me up. She said, "Anderson, I'm reserving your ladies' restroom for 8:30 on Thursday." What? She said, you heard me. I'm reserving your ladies' bathroom for 8:30 on Thursday. I said, lady, do you have the right phone number? She said, yes, this is Famous Dave's and I'm reserving your bathroom. And I said, whatever for? She said, I'm holding my next cocktail party. But I had the most talked about bathroom, and people
That's
literally
so
would grab other gals and say, you got to see this bathroom. So I think there's some things that we have to do to become memorable. You need to be able to stand out from the sea of sameness. And I could give a whole lesson on how to read industry magazines, how to read taglines, how to circle the word groupings. Because today I have been on the Discovery Channel, the Food Network. I've been on the History Channel, the Travel Channel. I've been on over 300 radio stations. You can look up Guy Raz, How I Built This, on National Public Radio. I guess a lot of people have heard it. Guy Raz is a very popular NPR radio host. And as you could tell, stuff just falls out of my mouth. And I tell people, if you're going to interview me, you better sign a medical release, because you're gonna get carpal tunnel trying to keep up with the stuff that falls out of my mouth. Now, all of that comes from the word groupings. I actually create dictionaries from every industry magazine that I read, and all of your movers and shakers. And if you were to send them a little note saying that you read about them in an industry magazine, you'd be amazed how many doors will open for you. There's a lot of things that I've learned the hard way that really have gotten to me to where I'm at today.
I just love, oh my God, Dave, I talk about, as you know, outside the box marketing. Bathroom marketing is so good, because think about it. Most restaurants just have your typical bathroom, and women go to the bathroom twice during dinner at least. Now they're talking about, like, what made you stand out? Who does museum art in a bathroom in a restaurant? Nobody. And
well,
so
here's another thing. I call it stacking. When you're best of the best, everything I try to do when I started, here's something, you guys. When I first started Famous Dave's, I wrote down 100 things that I could be the best of. Everybody says, write down your dreams and put benchmarks and you'll have goals. Well, what I did was I wrote down every single thing that I wanted to be the best at. 100 things I could, and I caught my best of the best list. I wanted to have the best ribs, the best honey buttered cornbread, the best country roasted chicken, the best barbecue baked beans. But I also wanted to have the best training programs, the best place to have on your resume, the best place to go on a first date, the best place for brunch, the best place for lunch. And then I also wanted to have the best music. So I actually hand selected every blues song played in my restaurant. Now, Craig, you're a musician. 3 songs were 108 beats per minute to 117 beats per minute. The 4th song came down to 108 to 112 beats per minute. There were 4 songs to a set, 2 sets to a rotation. Every second set, I put in a Cajun Zydeco song. And then these 3, I also divided into jump blues, honky tonk blues, push beat blues. I really studied it. And you'll hear some restaurants play certain songs, like if you go to an Italian restaurant, they'll play Frank Sinatra or Dean Martin, type Italian songs. But what I did was I subliminally wanted to control the atmosphere. So you have a resting heartbeat of 70 beats per minute. And when you're bouncing up like this because of the music, your heart rate increases to where you feel good. So I figured if subliminally I could control the beats of my music and not just stream in music like so many restaurants do. So I hand selected every single song played in a Famous Dave's. So when you go in, you're feeling good, eating good ribs, and when you leave, you had the best time of your life.
You know what? I've heard you talk about this before, about your hand selecting music. Tony Robbins does a whole thing on music. on how it makes you feel. He talks about, like you said, the heartbeat and how it makes you feel. And he plays specific songs at specific times in a seminar to get you to feel something because of what he's talking about.
Well, and I share this because
Yeah.
you shouldn't just turn on the radio and be subjected to the stuff that's on the radio. I will not listen to any music in my home, my car, that I have not hand selected, because I want to control the environment. I want to control what goes into my mind. And I always want it to be uplifting or relaxing.
Yeah.
So I actually have playlists that are just for listening, as well as playlists that get me up and going and motivated.
So like dancing in the kitchen while you're cooking your ribs. Let me just take one more question. If anyone has a quick question. All right, I think we're good then. Unless someone's trying to mute themselves and they forgot how to mute.
Delilah asked which famous Dave's has the museum-like bathroom. She wants to know the location.
Oh, which famous days has had it?
That was the original one in Hayward, Wisconsin.
Okay, is it gone?
Unfortunately, I had a horrific fire in 2015. We had a big storm several months before where it blew down a lot of our trees. We lost the roof, and then when they put the roof back on, we think a roofer's nail hit some electrical something. But the original Famous Dave's, by the way, was probably the most photographed restaurant in 6 states. There's a reason why I would serve 6,000 people a week in a town of only 2,000. And it was a very tough, hard loss for me.
Yeah, that's a toughie. Well, Dave, once again, thank you so much. It's great to connect with you again. You are an inspiration. I forgot how really great you are at this. You just inspire. I have 4 pages of notes. I don't think I've ever taken 4 pages of notes in 1 hour. That's amazing. I went crazy. My pen's going nuts. But let's all unmute ourselves and give a big round of applause.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was awesome. Thank you.
That was great. Very inspiring.
Thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. I wish all of you the very best. Live your life in gratefulness, be a positive difference in the lives of others, and then get ready for the ride. And like Craig, I always tell people, I'm rocking and rolling.
Yeah,
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
Got a
Thank you
piggy
for
by the
being
tail. If I felt
inspiration.
any better, I'd be eating some barbecue with all of you. Thank you, guys. May you always be surrounded by good friends and great tasting barbecue.
thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Dave.
Thank you.